If there's one position group that you might think is the weakest among Georgia's entire roster, among all position groups, right? I think most people would say that it's the defensive line. It's one of the reasons they lost to Alabama last year, and it just didn't seem like they were as dominant in the trenches last year, especially along the defensive line. But if you ask Kirby Smart, he doesn't necessarily think that it's a giant weakness right now. He had his press conference earlier this week. Of course, a lot of people asked him about last weekend's first spring scrimmage. How did everyone do? And of course, there were a couple reporters who asked about the defensive line because, I think it's safe to say that that's a position group that could improve from last year and one that needs to improve if Georgia wants to win a national championship. But here's what Kirby had to say about his defensive line when asked about their performance in the first spring scrimmage. He said, "I thought they did a really good job of having energy and enthusiasm. We affected the quarterback. We had some disruptive sacks, did not probably play the run as well as I'd like to. As high as my expectations are in terms of making goals of 3.3 yards or less, we've had much more dominant scrimmages from a defensive line standpoint than we did on Saturday. We had some guys nicked up and banged up. I was pleased with the tenacity and the way both groups at the line of scrimmage approached it." Now, he's saying they did fine. They weren't perfect, but, apparently, he thought they did a good job, at least of having energy and enthusiasm. You got to make plays, though. And a lot of people think that if you compare Georgia's defensive line to their offensive line, you would think that the offensive line would win. And I believe I have a video coming up on the offensive line, so that's a very good group. And Kirby talked about that. But at some point, as someone who covers the team, I've got to figure out, okay, is Kirby Smart giving us the runaround? If a lot of people are talking about, hey, the defensive line hasn't looked all that great this spring compared to the offensive line. I'm not saying it's a bad group. I'm not saying this is going to be a bad group in the fall. In fact, I think it's going to be a really good group. But really good doesn't win championships on the defensive line and on the offensive line too. You need to be elite. And Kirby Smart said that we want to be elite, right? We want to get better. We want to be elite at getting better is what I'm trying to say, especially on the defensive line. He's been doing this. He knows that it takes elite, game-changing, run-stuffing, space-eating monsters in the middle of your defensive line. And it doesn't seem like they still have that Jordan Davis, Devonta Wyatt, Jalen Carter type. But someone asked him again about the defensive line, and that's when he kind of, started to stand up and say, what are y'all talking about? And kind of stand up for his defensive line. He said, I don't know where this is coming from. Maybe that's a narrative out there that the defensive line is kind of getting their butt kicked this spring. I don't know that to be true. I've just been told that people around the program would like to see that position group get better. I don't know how without bringing in a game-changing type, but a lot of people saying if, the defensive line is more worrisome than the offensive line. No one's saying this group is bad. When you cover a national championship team, you've got to look at where can this team improve? Where are they possibly not elite right now? What position group could get them to lose a game, right? Could be the reason they lose. And right now, it does look like it's the defensive line, but Kirby Smart doesn't want that narrative out there. And in fact, he's still trying to change that narrative. He said, I have no idea what you guys are reading or saying or seeing. I'm not down on our run defense. We are not as good as where we were there last year. And they put in quotations, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Devonta Wyatt, but they weren't on the team last year. He said, but we are better than we have been in a lot of other areas. This is a scale of that. And I'm reading these direct Kirby Smart quotes over on Dawg Post. This is from his press conference, and there's a lot. He talked a lot about the offensive line, a lot about the defensive line. Of course, you can read this all over on the website. But he said, I would not trade our group for any group in the country in terms of defensive line groups. As a collective whole, we have got a group that can get the job done. Now, when I see that, when I hear that, we've got a group that can get the job done, the only thing you can think about is a national championship, right? They can get the job done against Auburn, against Tennessee, against Kentucky. Cool, right? That's expected. You're expected to beat the brains out of them every single year moving forward. That's the expectation. That's the standard. But when he says get the job done, that means in my eyes, Kirby thinks this group is good enough to help them win a national championship. And that's what this is all about. So I can only report what I'm hearing, speaking to people around the program. But it looks like Kirby Smart doesn't want that narrative to be that the defensive line is going to be holding this team back, right? That's Trey Scott's group, but that's Kirby's baby as well. He's very much a defensive back at heart, played there. He's got his hand in the secondary. But he wants to have a dominant defensive line, and he wants these guys that he recruited, a lot of them are very, very good players, to get better and better and better. And I think he's expecting that. He sees that a lot of these guys are on that right path of development and turning into a possible player that could be maybe Jordan Davis, maybe Jalen Carter. But I'll keep going because he said a lot. As a collective whole, we've got a group that can get the job done. They're going against one of the best 3 or 4 offensive lines to ever go against all season, each and every day. Iron sharpens iron. Love that quote. We are getting better by who we go against. I don't really, of the some of these sentences they give us, they don't make any sense and the words are out of context. So I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to compare them to Devontae, Jordan, and Jalen. Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, who were all here at different times. There were years where we had all 3 of those, and then there were years where we just had 1. It varies from year to year. I am pleased with where we are. So he continues to talk, well about, his defensive line, which is weird because the group that you think is the best, that should be performing the best, Kirby's going to criticize that group the most, right? He doesn't want people talking about how good they are, but he also doesn't want people talking about how bad a certain group is. So the group that maybe is not performing as well, Kirby's going to stand up for that group in front of the reporters and say, hey, y'all got it wrong. Y'all don't know what you're talking about. He loves to say that. He loves to tell the media, we don't know what we're talking about. That's not really true because we kind of do know what we're talking about. And then again, if you talk about how great the quarterback is, the running backs, the offensive line, then he's going to come out and say, you know what? There's a lot this group can do better, right? They're not perfect. They've got a long way to go, blah, blah, blah. It is the coach speak. And you've got to work your way around it. You got to figure out what he's saying. Is that genuine? Is that true? Or is it coach speak? That's just what he wants us to hear. He wants to use us as a mouthpiece. So he's going to come out and say, I don't know where this is coming from about my defensive line. This is a strong group. We could be better here, here, and here. But this group can get the job done, and I'm pleased where they're at. He doesn't say that about a whole lot. He's always talking about how they can work and work and work. And he said that with the defensive line too. But I think it's clear he doesn't mind where they are right now. And that's good, but you can still point to the defensive line and say that's maybe a weakness on this team. Maybe it's the biggest. Maybe it's just part of the weakness, right? Maybe, I don't think tight end is a weakness, although they'll take a step back without Brock Bowers. Still a very good group. Inside linebacker should be better than it was last year. Outside linebacker, I think there's a lot of hungry, talented edge rushers who are getting better and better there. So, maybe it's the secondary returning, trying to get 3 new starters in there, right? You're replacing a lot, but still the defensive line is one a lot of people are going to keep their eyes on. He said, again, we have to get better. I'm pleased with where we are, but we have to get better. The worst feeling as a coach is when you don't have players that you can get better. There are coaches all across the country right now on the defensive line who don't have a single 300-pounder. We've got several. We just have to continue to get them better and execute at a higher level. It's not about making them sometimes. It's about the guy behind them making sure he sticks his nose in the right place. So it's guys doing their job. That's what he wants. And he's telling everyone, if my guys do their job, we're going to be very good. But I tell you what, I'm going to talk about the offensive line in another video, maybe the next one. I think it's going to be the best group in college football. I got to do more research before the season. There's like 6 months right before the season. I got to do my other notes, scouting reports on other teams. But I do think it's going to be tough to find an offensive line better than Georgia's in the 2024 college football season. And that group is making the defensive line better. And I'm going to talk more about all that. But the offensive line will make the defensive line better. And that's going to help this team in a big way this season. Of course, you can read all of this, everything I read to you out of Kirby Smart's mouth and a lot of other topics. You can read all about it over on Dawg Post. You can sign up to our free newsletter. That link is right down below. As you can see, not the best hair day, not the best hair morning. It's 8 o'clock. I got my coffee. Sometimes, I got to make these videos early in the morning. Hair's a mess, right? Face is white. But that's what we do. We keep going. Georgia's defensive line is going to keep going. They're going to keep improving. And Kirby Smart is happy with where they are right now. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, sign up to our free newsletter. That link is down below. You can read this story and others over on the website. Thanks for watching this video. Hope to see you on Dawg Post.